Okay, hey, continuing our talk about cells here. Our next several chunks are going to be cell organelles and their function. Okay, cell organelles is a fancy way to say cell parts. Okay, you are made up of organs and organ systems. Those organs are made up of tissues and cells, and then the cells are made up of organelles. Here you see a very standard blank copy of a cell. This is no type of cell in particular. But you see a lot of the parts that we're going to be talking about. I'm going to probably break this up. I might just do one full video of just all the cell parts. Ideally, I think I would probably chunk it over 3 different sections as you're going. But for ease of filming and presenting here, we might just do all in one batch. We'll kind of see how I'm feeling by the time I get to the first break there. So cell parts and their functions, some you'll be familiar with, no doubt. Others will be probably new for you. And I'm trying to make an analogy for each cell membrane or cell part, I should say, just like you guys are going to be doing. The idea being behind analogies is that we cannot really see cells all that easily or understand them. And so if we compare a part to something that we can easily see and compare, then that's going to help us out here. So cell membrane, that is the membrane around the outside of the cell. That is going to define the cell, meaning that if there's parts inside that membrane, then it's a part of the cell. If it's outside that membrane, it's no longer a part of the cell. So it sets the boundary for a cell, just like the castle walls would set the boundary for a castle in there. All right, so you see the castle walls drawing below. Cell membrane is made up of a phospholipid bilayer. We'll be going into more detail what that means. We're going to have a whole couple days just on cell membranes in the future. There is a very rough sketch of what a phospholipid bilayer is, but don't get too bent out of shape over that. There'll be more on that to come in the future. Cell membrane here, it is labeled with the blue stuff. And you'll see it's called the plasma membrane here. That means the same thing. Okay, cell membrane, plasma membrane, same difference there. Next up should be one that you are familiar with as well. That is the nucleus. Right, the nucleus is the control center of the cell. Down below, I have a picture of a brain. If you're going to compare it to your body, a computer, as in it's going to contain the genetic information. Okay, so it contains the code of life, which we should maybe be familiar with as DNA. All right, the code that makes you you. One thing that's unique is that the nucleus is not present in all organisms. Plants and animals, yes, all of your cells. Yeah, all of your cells should have a nucleus, same with all animal and plant cells. However, there are some organisms called prokaryotes. Prokaryotes, meaning before nucleus, would be that they don't have that. Okay, they still have DNA. It's kind of loose in their cells. That'd be bacteria, and then kind of bacteria's ancient cousin, the archaea there. And then eukaryotes is the category we'd fall into. Those would be nucleated cells in there. All right, so those are the eukaryotes. Nucleus is usually one of the structures we could see if we had a microscope. I'll try to attach some of those. If you go way back to part 1, we had the selfie at the beginning, but when we stain cells, the nucleus is usually pretty prominent as this dark center of the cell there. Within that nucleus, we have what's called chromatin. Right? Chromatin is your genetic information, which is your DNA. It's kind of a confusing nesting there with that. So DNA is the raw molecule of inheritance. And we'll get a whole chapter on DNA at some point. Chromatin is packaged DNA. Okay, so the DNA strand by itself is not just sitting in your nucleus. It is packaged in this chromatin that we can see in the bottom there. And so that's the packaged DNA. There's some proteins in there that kind of help wind it so it fits all in there nicely. When your cells are going to duplicate, so when we're going to make copies, your chromatin is going to form what's more commonly known as chromosomes, and it's probably a term you're familiar with. As humans, we all have 46 chromosomes that are divided into 23 pairs. There are some human beings that might have 47, and a few that might have 45 chromosomes. We'll get into that with genetics. That is not usually there's some disorders associated with those. Think of your chromosomes and DNA as an instruction manual, and your cells are being created reading those instructions. And so if you have extra instructions inserted in there, or you're missing instructions, usually there's some errors in constructing the human body in that way. So 46 for humans is the magic number. There's nothing special about the number 46. That's just what we have. If you're a gorilla, you have 48 chromosomes. I think horses have 74 chromosomes. Fruit flies have 4. You know, it's not like, oh, we have more chromosomes, you're smarter. That's just how long the instruction manual is for your body there. So chromatin, we're not going to see chromatin in a diagram or in a underneath the microscope. Okay. Maybe some of, the advanced electron microscopes in the world, but nothing at the high school level that we ever see. Okay, so the next layer in the chromatin, like I just mentioned, is made up of your DNA. We're going to have an entire unit on DNA, so we're going to kind of breeze through it here right now. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. That is a mouthful. When we get to DNA, that we'll understand that, hey, that kind of just tells you what your DNA is made out of there. Okay, so it's going to make sense in the future. It contains all of your genetic information. For the most part, we're finding out that there's maybe your genome has a few more pieces to it, and as we get there, but for all our purposes, this is your genetic information. This is the instruction manual to build your body. Your DNA is going to be slightly different than my DNA. Your DNA is also going to be slightly different than your parents, than your siblings. Okay, unless you are an identical twin, then you'll have the same DNA. But we all have unique DNA, and that's what gives us part of what gives us our differences. Like I said, except for those identical twins, they have the exact same DNA as they're going. Moving on, inside the cell, the picture has a lot of different. I have a picture there. Okay, so in our picture here, all of that yellow, that is a gel-like substance that keeps everything suspended and everything holding in there, and that is your cytoplasm. Okay, so that is, I always think of it as like a Jello mold, like when you're at Thanksgiving and grandma brings out the Jello with the chunks of bananas in it or whatever. I don't know this picture with who puts eggs and olives in their Jello, but it's the same kind of concept there, that you have this gel-like substance that fills your cell, that all of these cell parts are sitting in. All right, it's not water, it's not air, it is cytoplasm in there. And once again, that is indicated by our yellow insides of the cell. And then I think we'll do this. This will be the last part for the day. I think it's better to give these in about those 10-minute shots there. So the last part of the day, everyone's favorite, all the memes out there about the mitochondria. Yes, in fact, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. You should all know that by now. That should be the one that you're going to remember from high school biology, because that's the joke. But it's an important cell part. Its role is going to convert organic matter into ATP. What does that mean? It's going to take the sugar that you consume and it's going to turn it into power that your body can use. Okay, so it's not like you're able to just take, pure sugar and fuel your body. You need these mitochondria to turn that sugar into little pockets of energy that your cells can use. Interesting thing about mitochondria, it actually has its own DNA. It's not your DNA. Weird, right? I'll go into the spiel here quick. Sperm cells and egg cells. Okay, that's how we all started off. The sperm cell is one of the smallest cells in the human body. Egg cell is one of the largest, is the largest. Wow, is one of the largest cells in the human body. So you have half your chromosomes from mom and you have half your chromosomes from dad. half your chromosomes from mom, half your chromosomes from dad. The sperm cell pretty much only has chromosomes in it. It's got a little motor to turn the tail, and then it's just a little pocket of chromosomes to give genetic information to the egg cell to start building the human being. All of your cell parts came from your mother. All right, so your mitochondria, your cytoplasm, your I almost said chloroplast, your ribosomes, your endoplasmic reticulum, your Golgi apparatus, all those things came from your mother. Your mitochondria has DNA, and so it is your mother's DNA that's in there, and not necessarily your mother's DNA, but her mother's DNA, their mother's DNA. So it's your mitochondrial DNA is passed along your maternal bloodline. So following your mothers, etc. Why I bring this up? Two things. One, if you ever do any of those like ancestry, like you guys have seen those like 23andMe, like go figure out where your ancestors are from. They look at mitochondrial DNA because it doesn't change that much. Your DNA gets every generation, it gets cut in half and a new half put in. Mitochondrial DNA is just small mutations over time, so it's a lot more stable. And it is kind of the leading piece of evidence for the endosymbiosis theory. That's a mouthful. It's not going to be on the test, but this idea of how did life way back at the beginning go from single cell rudimentary life to eukaryotes to multicellular organisms, and the idea comes from, hey, mitochondria have their own DNA. So at one point, a long time ago, it's possible that a mitochondria was its own organism that got absorbed by another cell. All right, so that's the endosymbiosis. There's more to that, but that's a conversation for a different day. So mitochondria wraps up our cell parts 1. Hang tight for more with cell parts 2 and 3 coming in the future.